This is Fearlessly Fertile. Welcome to the Fearlessly Fertile podcast, episode 335. It's a Fearlessly Fertile miracle papa story with John. How he went from being resistant to having another baby to being all in. Loves, I'm so excited to be here with you this week as we dive into another amazing testimony of triumph for one of our Fearlessly Fertile miracle papas. This time, it's with John. You will remember John's wife, Kirsty, from much earlier in our podcast history, and I strongly encourage you to go listen to her story if you have not done so already. John is super upfront about his initial resistance and skepticism about the two of them having another baby. They came to this relationship each having had children before, and Kirsty, she wanted to have a baby with this man. As he will share with you, they had a sliding doors romantic moment, fell in love, and were just destined to be together. But when Kirsty felt it on her heart to have another baby, John was like, not sure about that because their lives were already complicated with each of their own kids, and the idea of adding a baby to all this really seemed overwhelming and crazy to him. But what John is going to break down is actually what the thought process was for him and how things turned around for them when he went from being resistant to being all in. What was that process? How does a man go from being resistant to all in? I love the way John breaks down exactly how he went from resistant to all in. So if you find yourself in a similar situation where it feels like you and your partner are on two completely different pages, turn this one up, take a bunch of notes, and listen carefully to what John shares here, because it takes a lot of courage, a lot of strength, and a lot of humility. We love John because indeed his story combined with Kirsty's is a story of triumph, because you're also going to hear how they got to the point where they thought they were going to need IVF. But on the eve of an IVF cycle, this openness, this transformation in Kirsty and ultimately in their relationship turned everything around. That is the power of how your mind can take you beyond the limits of what you think is possible. So here's my conversation with John. John, I am so excited that we get to have this conversation.
Me too.
So I would love it if you would start us off by sharing a little bit about how you and Kirsty found yourselves on this journey.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so I think everybody has different journeys. I've listened to a few of the podcasts, like on a couple of car trips. I mean, Kirsty's listened to a lot more, but I suppose our journey was is complicated. So we got together by a chance meeting. It was like a sliding doors moment. Probably 10 seconds later, we never would have met. And once we met, then the world all changed, and we decided that we needed to be together. And at the time, we were with other people, with kids, with other people. So there was a lot of stuff to sort out, and all of that was sorted out, and lots of logistics to do. And we still live in two places. So we live together, but we live in two houses. So I can spend time with my older boys, and we can spend time where Kirsty was living with her daughters at school and sees her dad and all that sort of stuff. So we have a very complicated life. But having a child together was something that we talked about right at the beginning. But then as life got more complicated, very much for me, found it quite hard to figure out how another baby would fit into our complicated lives. We also run our own business together. Like, honestly, we sleep and then we do everything else. there's very little give time in our lives. So I started to struggle to think about how we would have time for that. So while Kirsty was really keen to have another baby, I, for a long time, was saying, look, I can't see it happening. I could only see the negatives of it. I could only see what it would take away from our life, or what it would make harder, rather than what it would bring to our life. So we'd waited a while, and Kirsty was getting older by the year. And then finally, my mind changed. I started to think a little bit more about what the positives would bring, and what having a new child would mean, and what it would mean for our family, and how it would bring it all together, and all that sort of stuff. So my opinion changed. It's like, okay, let's go for it. And that's often me. I either make very quick decisions, or I sit on something for a long time, and then suddenly a flick goes, a switch flicks, and then I make a decision. So I said, let's go for it. Anyway, then we started, and then it didn't happen. And it didn't happen straight away, which we thought it would do, because it had happened for Kirsty's first daughter. And it had happened for me with my boys. It was a fairly instant thing. So then we're okay with it for a bit. And it's like, okay, well, let's just keep trying. But then as the time went on, it was like Kirsty was feeling the pressure of time and feeling her age and all these things that was sort of putting more pressure on the situation. And that's when we started to explore, well, maybe there was something wrong with me or something wrong with her. Like as in, this maybe won't happen naturally. We need to have a look at what we might do with it. So Kirsty had a breech baby and the placenta had been retained, and she remembers somebody saying that this may cause you problems in the future or may not. So then we decided to get that investigated. But all of this was around COVID time. So getting appointments, being able to see people and all the rest of it. It wasn't like you call up today and tomorrow you're in. It was like, okay, there's 3 months waiting. And as long as COVID restrictions don't come back, we can do X, Y, and Z. So all of that sort of elongated it. And then we found that maybe you should have some challenges like internally, some scarring or something that may be of an issue. So then that proceeded to an operation, and that was done, but then still no success. And then we got closer and closer to having IVF. And literally the day we were about to go and have IVF, she found out she was pregnant. So that's the whole story sort of from start to finish. But there's the very important part, which is where you come into it and where the coaching came into it. But that was sort of our start of our journey to the end of our journey. But it really started from this point of me delaying for a long time, and that delaying then feeling like we were under a lot more pressure, time pressure, to get things sorted, whatever the things needed to be, whether it was me, whether it was her, whether it was just we needed to keep trying.
The whole reason why we're having this conversation is to really shed light on the man's experience, because I think that men suffer in silence in a lot of ways. Certainly when you're struggling to have a baby, everybody feels it. And as much as it's a shared experience, it's also a deeply personal one. And I think it takes a lot of courage to say what you said, where you weren't fully on board until you were. Like, great. And I think it's fantastic for people to be conscious and thinking about what they want, as opposed to just, doing it and not really know why. What was it, do you think, that kind of pushed it over the edge for you personally to say, you know what, I really am ready to be a dad again? I totally get your sliding doors romance. And you also married a really hot woman. Like, I get all that part of it. But like, what was it for you?
Yeah, I think it's a really hard one. I mean, so in my work, I do a lot of change management sessions and things like that. And there's a sort of lesson in sort of change management in a company and all the rest of it, where often people associate change with loss rather than gain. So I think for me, I was focusing on what I would lose from having another child rather than what I would gain. And I've got two beautiful boys, big boys, each come with their challenges, as any kid does, and all the rest of it. But, I'm proud to have them and for them to be mine. But I remember the long nights, and I'm not somebody that I don't sleep through kids crying. Like, literally somebody else's kids cry, my pulse starts racing and I have like palpitations, so I can't sleep through it. I'm the sort of person that wants to fix stuff and do stuff. I'm a literally card carrying certified martyr. Like I'm a professional martyr. Like, no one is better at martyring themselves than I am. So it's like, yes, I'll get out of bed, I'll do another morning and all this, which none of that helps yourself, like, really. So all of that was like, okay, I'm going to do that again. Now, I knew Kirsty would be a super mum and we would be partners in everything we do. But even sharing stuff 50-50 is still a lot of shit to do with a baby. So all of that was sort of my, okay, this is going to happen. I'm not going to sleep very well. I'm now, how old are the boys? I'm like 12 years older than when I did this before. I'm out of practice. Like all of those, all the negatives of having a baby, having done it before and been through it twice before, I was bringing those to the surface rather than going, what does it mean for us? What does it bring? Like, what are the joyful moments that it would bring? What would it mean for our family? And I was thinking, I'll have less time with my bigger boys. I don't have less time with my bigger boys. I maybe have less time to focus on them when I'm with them because I've got a toddler running around. But we still spend that time together, and they're getting older and they don't want me around as much anyway. They got their own lives. So all of that was calculating in my head. And in the end, I just had to go, well, let's look at the positives of what this might bring to us rather than the things it's going to take away from me or the things I'm going to have to sacrifice. And I think that was where the decision changed, but also knowing how important it was for Kirsty and how she could see how it's important for us as a partnership, as a marriage, as a relationship and things like that. So, but as I say, sometimes these things, I just have to sit on them and then the good stuff floats to the top. And then I'm like, that's why you're going to do it. And then I go for it. But yeah, I don't know. I do training with a guy, like a personal trainer, and he was having big questions about having a child with his then girlfriend who now isn't his girlfriend. And he just kept questioning it. And I said, dude, if you're still questioning it, like it's not the right decision to make. And maybe that isn't the best advice, and it cost him his relationship. But, like, unless you can know that you're up for it, you've got to be up for it because it's hard.
Well, I think you're raising a really intelligent point here that a lot of men need to hear, because I think a lot of men get fixated, especially if they are in new relationships or they're starting second family. It's kind of this next chapter in their family where they get overwhelmed and they think, well, I don't want to be an old dad. And I don't, you're 100% correct in saying most people will tend to look at what they stand to lose versus what they stand to gain. It sounds like it's made your life better.
Yeah. I mean, Wolfie's like the glue, and not that we need glue. Like we're lucky that our three kids get on pretty well, and everybody has bumps and all the rest of it as families do, but they're pretty, we're a pretty good family when we spend that time together. But yeah, Wolfie's the thing that connects everybody. And when me and Kirsty are not here, then, and there will be a time we're not here, that Wolfie will be the thing that connects all the kids together. And that's really important. And, even if, so my other kids sort of have struggles and challenges and things like that, and we fall out and all the rest of it. But when they see Wolfie, their faces light up. Maybe 2 hours later when he's being a bit of a pain in the ass and keeps turning the TV off when they want to watch it and all these other things, and they might be like, okay, the face goes down a bit. But when they see him, you see the light in their eyes, because of that brotherly or sisterly love from Ella's side that that brings it all together. And I suppose it makes our family. There's a connection between all our family unit now. I mean, that's really important. And they're a lot of fun and they make you laugh, and meal times would be boring. I could be like, how's college? Yeah, rubbish. How's school? Yeah, rubbish. What are you doing tomorrow? Don't know. Whereas with Wilfrey, it's like, I have a question about volcanoes. And you're like, okay, cool. Let's have a chat about volcanoes.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I love that. I'm going to tuck that into my back pocket. And like, it's just such a delight to see you all in that place. Well, so what was it like for you, John? Because, you knew that Kirsty wanted this really badly. You see her struggling, and she mentions to you that she's talking to this slightly foul-mouthed former prosecutor, Yankee. Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, it's I had mixed feelings about it. And when I say mixed feelings, that sounds like I had positive and then ambivalent feelings. So first, positively, I was thinking, well, good, if she can talk to somebody and get some support and work through some of the things that she's facing, then that's great. And selfishly, that's great if that doesn't need to be me all the time, because also I've got skin in the game and I also feel responsible. We can talk about that in a minute. Like the guilt and the responsibility that I felt for delaying stuff. Like maybe this is my fault, and she would tell me this is my fault. Like in moments of anger. So to have somebody else to talk to and work through that stuff with, I think was a real positive. But then there's an element of skepticism to say, like, well, okay, well, what's this woman like? who's this like hypnotist woman that's gonna like do all this sort of business? So there's a little bit of sort of skepticism about it. But I think as time went on, I could see the difference that the sessions were making to her, and the positivity in the way of reframing things that you did and you do with your ladies and you do with her to, maybe I could have done with you like the 2 years before to help me reframe my thoughts about having a baby. What you were able to do for her is reframe her thoughts about what might be getting in the way, or that this will happen, or that, give that positivity piece, which is really important, because you can get caught up in the negative. It's a negative cycle. It's like, right, we'll try again, then we try again. Then there's the weight and the anxiety of that. And then there's the result, which in many cases and often is a negative one. And then it's, and then we do it all again. Whereas being able to reframe how you look at some of what's happened and find successes and find things to life buoys to hang on to that are positive pieces of news and things like that, I think is really, really important. And you can say that as a husband. You can say, oh, well, let's try and be positive. And you can get that with two barrels right back at you in angry moments. And also it can be dismissed quite easily, because it's like, well, you have to say that because you have to keep me happy and on an even keel because we're doing this. Whereas you're an objective perspective. And I think having that time with you was really valuable and precious. So I could see that as the journey went on. But yeah, at the beginning, I'm like, we'll try anything. Like we were doing cast. We were laughing. I was talking to Kirsty. She said, "What are you going to talk about?" And I said, "I don't know." And we started reminiscing about all this sort of stuff. And I said, like castor oil things on stomach. The castor oil things on stuff. I used to fucking hate that. Seriously, my hands would stink and we get grease everywhere, and I'll be on my knees, and I can't kneel on my knees very well because I'm old, and all this sort of stuff, and we'll be doing all this, and it would be like, and I'm like, I tell you what, if Roseanne stops us doing these castor oil things, that'll be a good thing. He really likes it. When I brought it up, she was like, "Oh, we need to do that again. I really enjoyed those sessions." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, let's do that again."
You are a good sport, John, because and I think that's the thing that sometimes, and I love that you raised that, because I think a lot of women forget, like we're so focused on having a baby that we'll do crazy shit. I mean, like straight up crazy. And like my husband would come home, John, I don't know if Kirsty ever told you this, but I would be boiling black chickens because I had driven to San Francisco's Chinatown and went to this one poultry dealer that had chickens with black skin because I had an acupuncturist tell me that was going to get me pregnant. So an otherwise rational trial attorney goes and boils black chickens. I mean, like that's the depths of the cuckoo that we go to.
Yeah, well, we had a lot of chicken too. So we had a lot of chicken broth. And I don't know if you want any advice for men, is like, don't eat chicken broth because it literally goes straight through you. It was good for Kirsty, but oh my days, it's like a medical miracle. But we had a lot of chicken stock, but now we still have a lot of chicken stock because she likes enjoying eating, like say, chicken soups and things like that. So maybe that's the legacy of it. But man, my house smells like stock like 3 times a week.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's important. And I love that you raised it, because I think a lot of men are they don't know what to do, right? There's a little bit of like, here's this woman that I love. She's descended into chaos. I don't know what to do. I mean, and so it's an interesting thing to see how men respond to that. And you were going to share a little bit about feeling guilty, because that must have been an awful combination, John.
Yeah, so exactly to your point on not knowing what to do, and I don't want to generalize like each man has a different experience and stuff. My feeling on men is they're fixers and doers, like that's how we are. But I can talk to myself like I'm a shit fixer upper. Like you want stuff done in your house, like call somebody else because it's a car crash. But in terms of fixing problems, that's what I do. So if something goes wrong, I think, how do I fix it? If something isn't working out, I think, what can I do, or what can I sacrifice, or what can I what's in my power to do to make that thing better. And that's how I cope with stuff, or I stick my head in the sand. But they're my two coping mechanisms: fix it, or try and fix it, or ignore it, go to sleep, worry about it the next day. So with a pregnancy journey or a fertility journey, the challenge is, as a man, you can't fix it. Now, there may be something that is wrong with me, like my sperm count or whatever, that could be fixed. And I think, it's hard because guys get caught up in masculinity and machismo and all that stuff. But if you can fix something about yourself, then do it, guys, because it's no fucking excuse. There's shit that women go through to have a baby. If you can't just go and spunk in a pot or cut out, eat some chicken broth, even though it goes straight through you, man up, guys, and do it. So there's those elements. So if there's stuff you can do, easy stuff you can do, that's fine. But then what then gets frustration is you can't fix this. Unless you're a gynecologist, you can't fix it. So then you're like, well, what else do you do? And then if there are elements to it where you do feel responsible for it, then it makes it feel even worse. So I felt responsible for the ticking clock part of that, because I could have said 2 years before that to say, let's go for it and have a baby. Now, we may have still been on the same journey, but we would have been 2 years sooner. And we may have found problems 2 years sooner and all that sort of stuff. So the guilt I had was of, I'd been the one delaying here. And then the guilt was compounded because when there was a failed cycle, and when I say cycle, I mean monthly cycle, because we never actually got to IVF, but when there was that moment in the months where we realized that Kirsty's not pregnant, then she would feel a lot of anger towards me for delaying. There's another chance gone, John. We could have had 24 other ones if you wanted to have a baby sooner. So that is there's nothing I can do because there's nothing I can fix. I feel guilty. And I feel helpless because my wife's going through this. So yeah, all those things compound to make it challenging.
Did you see some of that start to change with her though, as she started to do the work? Because I appreciate the honesty of both of you, talking about I was in blame or I was feeling like a victim or whatever, because at some point that has to change.
Yeah.
In order for the good that you want to come in and to get, you guys have a beautiful partnership, but at the same time, the stress is the stress. And we might say things in anger that we don't really mean. But did you see that start to change?
Yeah, I did. And I think that's that was, for me in this journey, that was the biggest benefit for me, was that Kirsty would challenge herself to think differently about this, or try and let go of some of that negativity that then was causing her anxiety and causing her stress and all those pieces. That wasn't easy, and it was an easy journey for her to do that. But being able to, be a bit more positive, or frame things in a positive way, it was really important. And then, selfishly, that meant I didn't get shouted at as much in those moments, which then helped me to feel less guilty, which then also helped me to not close down as much. If someone, I hate being in trouble. I could tell it, well, other than many times of being a husband, I've been in trouble. But growing up, I could give you 5 times in my life that I was ever told off or in trouble. So then when that happens on a monthly basis, then I just go into my shell. And then the things that I can do, like being supportive, being understanding, being empathetic, are really hard to do when you're you've dressed in Kevlar and you've put the shutters up because you feel under attack. And but I totally understood why that was the case, and it wasn't unjustified either. But it made it harder for me to then show up and be supportive. So her working through some of that stuff with you, or at least framing the journey in a more positive way and trying to pull the positives from the steps that had been taken, was really important, because that helped that basically helped me to help show up better for her.
Yeah. And I think that's a brilliant assessment there, because there is this sort of pattern that we can fall into. And, at the end of the day, you were both on the same page, but you were dealing with a very complicated situation that without sort of an outside perspective, it's really easy for you guys to go back to your corners, stay in your patterns, and never challenge what was going on. Because once you can get out of the place of, John, you're the reason for all of this, because you're already blaming yourself. You're exactly right. Each partner is better for changing their perspective, and they become more open. They become better problem solvers in a sense where it's not like it's not this zero-sum game where it's like, everybody can be better for it, and you can find solutions that honor you both instead of just being in a really kind of an immature place of blame.
Yeah.
So, wow. Well, okay. So then take us to this place. Cause I mean, you guys were getting ready to do an IVF cycle.
Yeah. So COVID had delayed various cycles. So we'd started with one IVF clinic, and we were going to do a procedure, but the information had been incorrect, like leading us to got to there. And when we got there, Kirsty was like, I'm not doing this. It wasn't a cycle, but it was like some investigations. And we'd got to that point, and we just said, no, we're not doing this. And we walked out. But then we found a different approach and a different clinic and a different consultant actually to work with. And we were about to do that. But then we kept getting these delays because of COVID. So it was like, COVID was then restricting people having access to IVF and being able to physically go into the clinics. And then you had the waiting list of people. So whoever was last on the list was, had to wait for everybody else to go through. So there kept being delays, and we kept being told, oh yeah, it should be in a couple of weeks, and it wasn't, and then a couple more weeks. So that was over the summer, and I think we were due to start it in September. I think a date in September. But as we got closer, we then did a pregnancy test, literally, as one does before you do this cycle, to double check. And then it's like, hang on a minute, that's looking positive, which it hadn't up to that point. So we didn't even need to go through IVF. I mean, we probably went through some of the emotion of that journey of doing that, but not certainly the physical part of doing the IVF piece.
Wow.
Which was amazing. It was like, we did and that's where Wilfred came from.
Yeah. Well, and in the end, that's what you guys wanted. Because I remember always asking myself, who the hell is this John? Because whenever I would talk to Kirsty, I was like, he sounds like a fictional character almost. He sounds dreamy, and like I could totally see why. And I knew in her heart that she was open to whatever you guys needed to do, but her sincerest desire was to conceive your baby naturally. And that's exactly what you guys did.
Yeah. And I mean, that's very much, I mean, yes, we were happy. I mean, she was the one having to go through it all, but to go through whatever route was needed. But yeah, definitely naturally. I mean, she had a daughter naturally. She had a daughter breech naturally. Like when Wilfie came out, we had him at home, and we waited 3 weeks until he came. He was 3 weeks overdue, and it's like, we're not going in to get drugs put into us and all that to make this baby come out. So that was always, trusting nature was always part of Kirsty's way. To be honest, I'm less like that. Like, I'll rely on medicine if I need to, sort of thing. But at the same time, I didn't want that for her if she didn't want that. So it all came. We've always had this thing in our relationship that it will all be right in the end, and if it's not all right, it's not the end. Like, as in, there'll always be a happy ending. But it was hard on this journey for both of us, but particularly for her, to see that happy ending. And I think that's what you helped her to do. Find moments to be happy about that made the happy ending feel more realistic. Because that's been what our experience has been. But then this, with the ticking clock and hormones and everything that goes with it, and guilt and anger and all the rest of it, it's hard to see the happy ending on the horizon.
Well, and that's how a lot of people end up blocking what they want. They're not open to it because they already inside at some level give up. And people ask me all the time, like, what makes these women different? And, I can tell from a distance, like, who is going to get to the other side of their journey. It's you've made an internal decision to be successful. And if you don't have the courage to do that, it's going to be very difficult. And you are where you are today because of that.
Yeah, no.
Well done, sir.
Thank you.
What do you think are some of the most important things you would want others to take away from your unique experience on this journey?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things really. I mean, I made a sort of, generalized quote like guys, go and get a sperm test and seriously have a word with yourself. Like, I think there's a little bit element of that. Like there will be things asked of you, but what's being asked of you is much less of being what's asked of your wife or your partner. So you may have reservations about it. It may be squeamish. You may whatever. There may be certain things, but really try and do what you can. Whatever's in your power to do, try and do, because there is a lot of this that isn't in your power, and therefore what you can do, please try and do. I mean, I stopped drinking, and not that I was a big drinker, but I stopped drinking. We changed our diet. I lost a lot of weight. Those are things that I was able to do for myself, like healthy eating and all the rest of it. And it wasn't that hard to do. Like, it wasn't that hard to do. And actually, it's really beneficial, like, to you. Like, it can build your confidence as a person when you see yourself more healthy and feel better and sleep better and all the rest of it. So there's those things that, so I would say consider doing all of those things, because while you might think, oh, I only have 2 or 3 beers a week, like, that might make a difference. And also it means you're going to feel less guilty if it doesn't make a difference. Like, if you're a person that can beat yourself up or feels guilty or in hindsight regrets things, then try and do the things that you can do here and now that then won't come back to haunt you later. So I think there's those pieces. And then I think the other bit is, like, try and ask it's hard to ask what you can do, but sometimes even small things can make a big difference. So, for example, when we were in the fertility clinic and Kirsty was really uncomfortable, like literally legs up in a stirrup, and this doctor was fairly dismissal of her questions, and we got conflicting advice about whether we could try again for a baby that month after this procedure, and went, oh, no, you can't. It's like, well, somebody told us you can. Oh, well, they're wrong. You can't. It's like, okay, anyway, so shall we proceed? And it's like, whoa, we need a bit of time to this. And then he's like, well, we need to get on. And in the end, I just basically stood up and went, no, we're doing it on our timetable, not your timetable. So you guys can leave the room and we'll have a discussion and we'll tell you if we're going to carry on. So we sort of did that, which isn't like me, because I'm like, I don't like conflict or anything like that. But then in hindsight, Kirsty was like, that was one of the biggest things that you did for me. You advocated for me when I couldn't advocate. And then there was another moment where we were chasing up for the clinic appointments through COVID. And she said, I just need you to call them because I can't call them. And I'm, shit at doing admin. But she's like, I need you to do this and I need you to do it now. And I did it. And I was able to say, we need a time. You need to get back to me later today. I'm going to come back to you. If you don't, we need that time. And she was like, thank you for doing that. And they were small things, like really were small things, but they were things that indicated that I had her back. So, and sometimes I think as men, particularly if, a lot of the women you work with are like kick-ass women who like run shit and run the show and all the rest of it. And probably their husbands maybe kick-ass in their own way, or they may just be people like me who just like hang on and hang on to the coattails of these brilliant women. But like, don't, even if it's not in your pattern that you do shit, then ask them if there's something that you can do. And a few times you might get it back at you going, well, you've done enough, haven't you? Or whatever. But keep asking and keep saying, I want to do something to help you. Just let me know, even the smallest thing, because those small things can make a huge difference. So I think there's that. And be brave. And if you get knocked back a few times, then keep asking. Like, find a way to ask in a way that looks like you're there to support, because that's what you are. That's the best thing that you can do, is be that support. So.
Well, and you're bringing up another fantastic point, is that, yes, you're absolutely right, John. Women come to me who are very kick-ass, just like your wife, but that makes it that much harder for us to ask for help.
Mm.
And so I think what you said is brilliant about be brave, keep asking, like, because for a lot of us, asking for help shows weakness, a level of weakness or vulnerability that we've been conditioned to believe that we can't show. Like, I think women, especially, well, in my country, like, I don't know about yours for sure, but I see some of it. But we get this mixed message, right? Where we kind of act like men to be successful. And we forget to turn that off and find our way back to our femininity and our willingness to receive from our men that are so well-intentioned and so want to give it to us, but they just don't know how because we don't know how to let them.
And also, you don't know how to let them under this stressful situation. Like it's not, it might be different. It's like, I'll happily, have my man do X, Y, and Z at home. Or I'll happily have my man take a lead in the bedroom or whatever. But actually, when it comes to something like this, that is fundamentally a woman's job, and I say that hearing the words I'm saying, but women are on this earth to procreate. Like you take it biologically. So your job is to have a baby. So when it then is the woman's job, do they want to ask for help from a man? No, because this is my job. This is what I do. This is my biological purpose in life. So therefore and I'm under stress because I'm not able to do it for whatever reason. And the things that you're working through all these ladies with are many reasons why. And now I've got this man next to me that I don't want to ask for help necessarily, or he's a bit useless on this sort of stuff, or I don't want to piss him off, or he's going to get angry, as I did at times, or he's going to think of me as less of a woman, or whatever the stories that are being told, like it's hard to ask. So then if your man comes, as a man, if you go to your wife and say, hey, what can I do? Let's make a list together. The things that I can do to support you. Is there something I can do today to support you? Hey, look, we know the cycle's coming up. We've had a couple of rough months. What can I do this month that might make it different? And all those sort of things. Ask those questions and say, I don't need an answer now. Just think on it and then let's have a chat about it another time. Then maybe that's a way to open up that conversation. And if your woman, your lady says, I don't need any help, I don't want that, then you've tried, and then try the next month and try the next month. I mean, if it's no all the time, then that's okay. But you've offered and you've done it. And that's great, I think, for your wife and partner to hear that. But it's also good for your self-esteem. It's like you can look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I'm going to keep trying that. That's something I can do. It's small, but it's something I can do.
Yeah. And, just the image when I was hearing you recount that experience at the fertility clinic where you jumped up in all of your awesome, polite British masculinity to like, hey, you're going to step out. We're going to have this conversation. Look, you can be in your masculine and be a beautiful protector. That doesn't mean oppressor. No. It just is protecting somebody that you love. And you did that really beautifully. And I mean, you're going to have like a permanent gold star.
But this is all the good stuff because you're hearing it from me.
Well, but by sharing that good stuff and you guys having gotten the result, it's a way of helping show the way to others. It really helps model to other men who want to be in that role as a protector, and for women to hear that protector does not mean oppressor. It's so good. It's just so good. Thank you, John. I'm so just absolutely delighted to finally meet you. I can now see why she went crazy over you and why you guys wanted to have a family together. And it's just a delight to see you so happy and really be rewarded for all of the good work.
Thank you for your part in that. I mean, and also, Kirsty, I can see a lot of what she's done with you coming through in other parts of life when we're handling stress and working together and all those sorts of other pieces. It's it's helped to change the dynamic of our relationship in a positive way and help Kirsty to better understand herself, which then means she brings her true liberated self to a conversation rather than any other things that she's, any other challenges that she's sort of facing. So it's been a good thing across the board anyway, and good when you're then coping with a toddler and juggling 2 houses and a business and 4 kids and all the rest of it that comes with it. So it's there are life benefits to it, not just fertility benefits to it.
Well, you guys wanted a big life and you got one.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. It's always people like, oh my God, how do you do it all? And it's like, yeah, well, probably once all of the kids have left and we've done something, we'll find something else to probably fill up all our time. It's like the glass has to be brimming at the top.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Please hug Kirsty for me. Hug Wilfred for me. And thank you for sharing your story. It's going to touch so many lives.
You're very welcome.
Loves, wasn't my conversation with John amazing? It's men like John and all of the miracle papas that you have heard in this series that are just extraordinary. They find a new path for themselves, and all of them are influenced by the changes their women made. You having the courage to change the way you think can have a ripple effect on how things are in your relationship. And if you remember, one of the greatest lessons from my interview with John was that he focused in on a transformational pivot point moment where he realized that he was more focused on what he stood to lose by having another baby as opposed to what their family had to gain. Ooh, that was a good one. So this opens up some really cool conversation for you and your partner. If you guys are courageous enough to ask yourselves, are we focused on what we stand to lose versus what we stand to gain? Because focusing on what you stand to lose is for freaking losers. And if you want to turn things around on your journey, you got to start looking at the gains, baby. And if you want my help doing that, and if you want me to teach you what I taught John's wife, Kirsty, go to my website, www.frommaybe2baby.com, and apply for an interview there. As you can see, my methodology has helped women around the world to make their mom dreams come true, and it's impacted their men. What you do has a ripple effect, mama. And if you want to have feminine, fertile influence on your man, you got to learn what we got over here. So go to my website, www.frommaybe2baby.com, and apply for an interview there. You might find you don't even need that treatment. Certainly wouldn't be the first time. Let us help you get there. Till next time, change your mindset, change your results. Love this episode of the Fearlessly Fertile podcast? Subscribe now and leave an awesome review. Remember, the desire in your heart to be a mom is there because it was meant for you. When it comes to your dreams, keep saying hell yes.